This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, MICHAEL COVEL. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Before I jump into my guest today, a quick reminder, a quick request. Support this podcast. Support your friendly neighborhood podcast host, me, to continue on this quest. How can you support this podcast? A couple different ways. Go to iTunes and write a review. It does not require you to buy a damn thing. Go to iTunes. I think you can go there on a quick forward, mylastname.com/iTunes. COVEL.com/iTunes will take you right to a place where you can offer a kind review. Or, and I'm used to this, if you are a certified nutbag, you're welcome to say something too. I actually enjoy reading insanely nutso stuff. I don't know, it gives me a smile sometimes. Go write a review. Offer some wisdom on iTunes. And for those of you that have not yet seen my newest edition of Trend Following, all 600 plus pages, buy the hardcover. Or for those of you that love audiobooks, you can go the 34-hour audiobook version of Trend Following. But the hardcover of Trend Following is my most impressive looking book that I've ever done when you hold it in your hands. You put it on the shelf and you say, you know what? I'm not throwing that one out. Maybe you won't read it, but you won't throw it out. You will make sure your kids or your grandkids or whoever gets it, it will go with the house. It'll go when you go. You won't throw it away. I promise you. Moving on from my quick little advertisements, my guest today is MICHAEL Salguero, serial entrepreneur. What a cool story. T-shirts, custom-made crafts, and today, Butcher Box, delivering essentially to your house from your own private butcher. Oh, and this is the good kind of meat. This is the grass-fed meat, the stuff that's not all jacked up with hormones and steroids and human growth hormone, whatever else they put in the standard issue supermarket meats today. I'm sure it's a little unsightly when we dig into the DNA content of standard issue meats. Mike is working very hard to solve that problem. And his story, no matter what you do, will cause an aha moment. You will either relate to something he says, or you will go, wow, I did not know that's how you have to do it to get ahead. I love these types of guests, as many entrepreneurs as I can get on to tell their story, because it all connects the dots. Even if you're only interested in trading, it all comes back to a core ethos. Have a good process and don't just focus on the outcome. I hope you enjoy my conversation today with MICHAEL Salguero. Serial entrepreneur, that's what I have to figure you would call yourself, yeah?
Yes.
Where did this start? I mean, you're a guy in your 30s. You have gone down these disparate paths. At least some people on the outside might say they're disparate. But to me, somebody, fellow entrepreneur, I kind of see a relation to all of these things. Give me the first moment in your life. The first moment in your life, you pulled in the dollar from somebody for something. Not a job, but that moment where you kind of, as an entrepreneur, it came in.
High school. In high school, I started selling T-shirts, which has been a passion of mine pretty much throughout my career since then. You know, I had a paper route when I was a little kid, so that taught me some grit and determination and having to get up and deliver the papers no matter what. And then when I got to high school, I figured out that there were all these teams and clubs and people wanted T-shirts and didn't know how to get them done. I didn't either, but I decided to go figure that out first. So that was the first foray. And then that moved into In college, I did a whole bunch of stuff. T-shirts was one of the big things that I did. So in 2004, I created this anti-George Bush T-shirt, sold 18,000 T-shirts. I created this Shamrock T-shirt for Boston for St. Patrick's Day, and would march on these or walk down these parades and sell thousands of T-shirts, and that became my thing.
That your thing in the sense that, okay, now I'm starting to acquire some capital ammunition to play different games.
Yes. And also kind of figuring out what sells, how to position yourself, how to market yourself, and how to grow a brand from the ground up. And that's something I've really been focused on and ever since.
Can I ask though, are you agnostic? You mentioned the political thing. Obviously, in these days, America's pretty well split. I would assume though, with your industrious nature, if you were in Texas, you might have sold 18,000 anti-Hillary T-shirts. As an entrepreneur, you would not have really cared.
For sure. Yeah, no, this was 2004, and this was Bush versus Kerry. No, I just took advantage of an opportunity. Certainly wasn't a deep political belief that I needed to champion. Since then, as I've gotten involved in companies like Custom Made, which connected makers with consumers, and ButcherBox.
Well, hold on. I'm not going to let you jump that fast on me. I got to see what this through line is here. I'm not going to Custom Made. As far as I can tell, Custom Made is a venture where you pulled in $30 million of VC, right?
Correct.
Well, okay, we're somewhere in college, and then we're bringing in $30 million to VC. There's something in between there, my friend.
There's a lot. There is.
Connect those dots for me. Lead me down that path. People want to know. Because look, most people are not out there. I mean, they can read stories in Inc. magazine and stuff, but most people are not out there raising that kind of venture capital. I'm guessing you might have even made your first 7 figures before you even took in VC.
Didn't, but yeah. The thread is that what I have is dogged determination. And when I get an idea in my head, I literally will not stop until it's funded or I get that job or the business starts. In college, I worked full-time throughout college, ended up doing real estate sales and rentals, and then created a t-shirt company and was doing that, and quit the real estate job and just did t-shirts. And then at the end of that, so after the election, I was like, I don't really think this t-shirt's going to sell much anymore. I better go find a real job. I decided I wanted to go back in and get a real white-collar job, which was a big mistake. I still regret that.
Stop. What was the motivation there? You've already figured out a way to get other people to pay you money. Why did you want to go? What was the drive there to go back and do everything you didn't want to do because you weren't doing that already?
Work for the man.
Yes.
Yeah. Mainly lack of confidence. I ended up that experience without a lot of money, with a lot of inventory and not a lot of money. There were a few moments there where I was like, I really don't know what I'm doing here. At the time, this was 2003, 2004, there weren't all of these incubators, and a lot has changed in the past 10 years in terms of really helping entrepreneurs. My network was not one that had lots of entrepreneurs in it that could help me have the confidence to take the leap and just stay an entrepreneur. So I spent 3 years working a white-collar job, getting my MBA at night, just waiting for the day that I would be able to go back out on my own. As soon as I got there, I was like, oh, this is awful. This is not for me. But I stuck it out.
Would that be not for you, the white-collar job and the MBA?
I kind of got the MBA because I wanted to keep moving towards entrepreneurship. So I went to Babson, which is an entrepreneurship school, and my company paid for it. So that's good. But
did you really need it?
No.
In hindsight, it was a delay.
Delay tactic. Helped me feel like I'm doing something when really what I needed to do was just go out on my own.
I did the same thing with an MBA, so that's why I'm being a little cocky about it. I did the exact damn delay.
Yep.
Okay, so you're on the white collar, you're doing the MBA. Connect me up to where we get to Custom Made.
I had a friend. He and I were looking at a bunch of different businesses to start or acquire. I was particularly interested in billboards. I've always been interested in billboards. So we were making a bunch of offers on buildings with billboards. We were looking at a few different cleaning services, just all over the place in terms of what we were looking for. My friend Seth bought a custom coffee table. He bought it through this website called custommade.com. He shows it to me and he's like, maybe we just buy this.
The company.
Yeah, the website, the company. Yeah. Basically, the stats were, this was 2008. Website was started in 1996. It was started by a woodworker. It had 350 of the best woodworkers in the world, or in the United States, who paid $35 a year for their membership and their profile to be up on custommade.com. And when you talk to these people, they're like, I get all my business from that website and I pay $35 a year. we, being real estate people, were like, oh, this is like a shack in Manhattan, like custommade.com, great domain name. Lots of traffic coming in for custom made bookshelf or custom made coffee table. And these people are saying they get outsized value for the amount of rent that they're paying. The play was, we'll purchase this website, we'll reskin it, and we'll jack up the rents, basically. That was pretty much it. That was as far as we had gone. So we had negotiated. I reached out to the seller over and over and over, and he finally decided to sell to us. We bought the website for about $140,000, went out to raise $500,000 in venture capital. So that was the first time that we had gone out to raise money.
Plug people in though. When you say, okay, we spent 140, you acquire the business. Now you want to raise 500.
Yeah, actually, even more risky. So what we did is we put down a $5,000 deposit, and so we wanted 90 days due diligence to look at the website. We had no other money. We just put down $5,000. And then during the 90 days, we ran around with a logo on a BlackBerry and raised money. And this was the fall of 2008, where Bernie Madoff just ran off with everyone's money and the economy was collapsing.
How much did you raise initially?
So we raised, we did a convertible debt round of $500,000, but I think we only raised about $400,000. And then the rest trickled in after we had closed.
You weren't giving up ownership at that point? It was just all debt?
Yeah, convertible debt. So it was debt that would convert to equity in the future. Convertible debt's a really great instrument if people want to delay the valuation question to a time in the future. So it was really hard for us to go out and say, hey, this company's worth $5 million, but we're going to buy the only asset for $150,000. Like, that didn't really compute with people. Yeah, so we took down the website, started working on it out of my apartment. We started scaling a subscription-based listing service where makers would pay an annual fee. We increased the price to, I think the lowest package was $350. Built out a sales team and just got going. We grew that business. We ended up taking 5 rounds of financing, and the last round we took was an $18 million round. It had top tier VCs in it like Google and First Round Capital, and really learned that whole world. We're building a marketplace at a time when two-sided marketplaces were incredibly hot in the VC world. We kind of saw it all.
At that moment in time, 30 million total raised, the 5 different rounds. And I know it gets a little complicated with the convertible aspect, but roughly how much equity had you given away? How much did you still control at that moment in time?
So at the end, my co-founder and I both, and we had sold some in secondary. So the last round we did, we were able to pull money off the table, but we had something like 10% each. So Gotcha. We had basically cornered ourselves into working a job. When you become a CEO of a company, sometimes you get 6 to 10% of the company anyway. We had essentially worked our way into a job.
Your leverage was gone.
Yeah, right. But by design. I mean, we pulled some money off when the going was good and the price was high. I'm glad I did that because ultimately my co-founder still runs custommade.com. He's pivoted the site into a jewelry site. They're doing very well, but the whole thing got recapitalized and changed.
I'm curious though. I don't say this in a negative way, but has the investment I assume has not been recouped. The 30 million that's put in, has the company ever justified that yet? Justified
the loss of investment?
Is it producing nice profits today that ultimately make those investors feel?
Yeah, so basically what happened was those investors got wiped out. There was a complete recapitalization of the company and a totally new direction. And all those investors, there was basically a massive reset of the company. So we had 40 employees, it went down to 6. I left with the 34. There was a whole bunch of investors who lost everything that they invested. It was a bloodbath.
This is a personal roller coaster for you. Huge.
For sure. It was looking back, I was able to scale a company to 60 people, was able to attract top tier venture capital, was able to do a lot of things that I'm very proud of, especially like impacting the makers' lives and all of our employees' lives. But by all intents and purposes, it was a failure. I didn't dwell on that for very long before starting the next company. I think that dogged persistence was kind of like, okay, let's just move forward.
One last question on the custom made aspect. With that many people and their investments kind of going south, and I just think this is the kind of case study you would get in an MBA program, really. But with that many investors and everything going not the right direction, or at least not the profitable direction, and the big losses, I mean, I'm sure some people expressed unhappiness, but were there people that really ever got kind of in your grill and just really got really, really upset with you? Or just people kind of looked at it and said, hey, this was a part of our portfolio and it's the VC world and it didn't go our way and it's kind of expected?
So I guess two things. One, the last round, the 18 million, we were able to get, like I said, we took money out, and we also offered all of our original investors, the guys who put in 500,000, we offered them 3.5 times their money. So anyone who wanted to get out, got out, which we felt good about, because then when they got a zero, at least they had the opportunity, and they decided, no, I'm gonna let this money ride. The VCs who lost millions of dollars, no, they were fine. I mean, I had the VCs come in, months later and say, don't worry about this. A failed venture is not a failed entrepreneur. I'm, really trying to build me up and my confidence up rather than dwelling on, hey, you lost all my money. I think venture capital is interesting in that way, where they really expect, the stats are they expect 3 of 10 to be flat, 5 of 10 to just lose everything. And then there's a few fund makers that really bubble to the top. So what they're trying to do is figure out quickly, where are you going to be on that line? Are you going to be great or are you going to be awful? I personally have a personal mission now to try to convince more and more entrepreneurs to not raise venture capital, because I think it's a big mistake. For a lot of businesses, really the incentives are misaligned, because you as a founder, you want as much time as possible. We needed as much time as possible in custom made, but we were encouraged over and over to build a massive technology team who then didn't have anything to build because we didn't know what we were doing, or, build a huge design team, or do all these things that you're supposed to do, quote unquote, if you're running a tech company. But really, ultimately, focusing on bottom line and profit and a profitable business model is way more important. So after reflection, what I've realized is what we were really good at was selling the dream of what custom made could be, but we didn't have product market fit. What happened was we got spun up in the world of two-sided marketplace, and oh my God, this is the Airbnb for custom furniture. We just rode that wave because the money was out there. And when you have people, the founder of Android was on our board. When you have the founder of Android telling you that this thing is the next Airbnb, you listen. You're like, yes, let's take more money. Let's do more. Ultimately, what ended up happening is we pivoted from a subscription business to a marketplace business where we would take a piece of the transaction. And that moved us from a reliable, repeatable business to a, hey, let's build this and hope for the best. And that was a very hard lesson for me to learn, and one I will never make again, because my whole philosophy now is build something that actually makes sense. Build something that is, you're trying to make a profit. Build something where you actually understand the gross margin and crazy things like that seem to have been lost as we've overcapitalized all these businesses.
How fortuitous to go through that experience, because you do the MBA, right, which is just all classroom stuff, but then you go through the real MBA.
Yeah, right.
The real life MBA.
For sure. Yep. The real life MBA of running a company into the ground, scaling it up and blowing it up, and learned so many lessons.
And I think you've given off some great kind of detail to let people kind of feel. Look, if someone doesn't hear your story and pause for a second, because look, there's going to be plenty of 20-something guys right now that are being spun the same story where there's like, oh my gosh, someone wants to invest $5 million in me. I'm going to take it. I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You've laid it out there. People can they can listen to some of that advice and go explore more and figure out, hey, does that really make sense what Mike is saying? Or they can just ignore it. Everyone's got a choice. So listen, this goes not the right way. So give me what happens to you personally. Is there a, you talk about this dogged determination. Was there a pause for a moment, or was there a kind of the aha moment of the next venture right away? Connect the dots for me.
Yeah, so I had actually started having the aha moment for the venture before the company went under. So basically what happened was my co-founder became the CEO about a year before the company was finalized. We didn't really need two CEOs, so it was always kind of a weird dynamic of co-CEO and who's doing what. But he wanted to be the guy in charge. I took a step back, and knowing what was going to play out, was looking for my next venture. The story of ButcherBox is my wife and I were trying to eat healthy meat We were on elimination diets and Whole30 diets, and everything is saying eat grass-fed beef. Couldn't find it, and I ended up buying it from some small farmer in New York who was basically, I think, illegally driving it over the border to sell. The first time I bought a quarter share, and it was too much meat, so I gave a bunch of steaks to my friends. And this is basically, it's called a cow share. So it's,
you mean too much meat? You didn't know exactly how much meat you were going to get. You got home and you have too much meat?
Yeah, basically what these are cow shares. So they give you literally a quarter of the meat that comes off of a cow. So it's 2 large trash bags full. I live in Boston, so small freezer, didn't have enough room, was like, ooh, geez. So I started giving it to my friends. 6 months later, I got another, except this time I got a half because a lot of my friends were like, ooh, if you get that again, can you get me some steaks? And then 6 months after that, I had gotten a whole cow and split it up and sold 8 shares to different people and then made my share for free. When I did that, there was a guy who bought some meat who was like, this would be so much better if it was just delivered to my house. And at the time, I was looking for a monthly recurring revenue business that was really sticky, meaning if you get them in, the person is just going to stay. And I was like, well, yeah, that would be cool. So I had been working on trying to put the pieces together on how to make that work for a while. And it was April of, we went under right before Memorial Day. So it was April of 2015 when I had met the former head of operations of Omaha Steaks, who helped put together the missing pieces of fulfillment, shipping, packaging.
As you say, cow to door?
Cow to door. Yeah.
That was the missing part because you started to figure out the cow part.
Right. So I knew the meat, but I didn't know how to scale that. And I knew the brand and I knew the positioning, and I was into the paleo diet and into CrossFit, knew what audiences we would go after, and knew subscription because I had done the custom made subscription. So I knew that there was a business there to be had if I could figure out how to reliably ship 10 pounds of meat across the country to anyone who purchases it.
Keep me in the early part here for a second, because my curiosity,
Yep.
You start to think, okay, gosh, could this actually be a nationwide biz? Okay. And then you say, well, gosh, and I want you to explain this because I don't think most people know where most meat in the U.S., what those animals are fed. I'd love for you to explain that. And then you ultimately have to get to a point where, okay, if we need to source animals that are not eating basically steroids, where do we find them all? I mean, give me some background here.
The reason, as I said, we were following these diets to say eat a grass-fed beef diet. And the reason why people are advised to eat grass-fed beef is because the traditional cow raised in the United States, about 98% of them, spend the first year and a half eating grass, just like our grass-fed cows. And then the last 6 months, they go to a feedlot, which is a very large industrial operation where in 6 months they put a ton of weight onto the animal, generally give antibiotics and hormones so that they just grow as big as possible, as fast as possible. They're pumping them with grains and corn. Cows love to eat that stuff, but it's really not good for their body, not good for their stomach, and there's a lot of downside health risks or health issues with antibiotics, hormones, a grain-based diet. Grass-fed cow, rather than going to a feedlot, basically spends another year just eating grass in a field, which is the way nature intended, the way cows were designed. So what you get is a cow that's not as big and fat, but has had a much happier life, more sustainable for the environment, healthier for the consumer. It was something that I personally was trying to find and couldn't find. And then as I started looking, was like, yeah, there must be some internet company that does this. There weren't any. Or if they were farmers. And the challenge with that is there's a lot within shipping and logistics and getting this cheaply to you that I just knew that your average farm was not going to be able to figure out.
How many farms are you working with right now that can source you the meat that you want, that meet your standards?
Oh, hundreds.
I'm sorry, hundreds?
Yeah. We do beef, chicken, pork. And what we generally do is we work with a collective that then works with the individual farms. Because our standards are so high, we want humanely raised standards, we want antibiotic or hormone-free standards, we want pasture-raised standards. It's too hard for us to go and individually certify all the farms. So what we do is work with the collective above and say, hey, we want to buy from you. You have to go make sure that the meat is this XYZ quality that we're looking for. and certify to us that it is. So then they're pulling from a whole bunch of different farms and a whole bunch of different people.
Give me the meat, and this is kind of a general type question, but the meat pricing type thing. I mean, look, we can walk into higher end supermarkets, Whole Foods and that kind of stuff. Talk to me about the pricing of grass-fed animals and the ultimate meat product coming out of them. Compare per pound of, let's say, ribeye or something, whatever you want to pick. Compare, I mean, the grass-fed, I'm assuming, is more expensive?
The challenge with pricing is there's a few challenges. So for the consumer, it can be all over the place. And the reason why is because the market is incredibly illiquid. So the commodity beef market, which is basically your regular beef, antibiotic, hormones, corn-raised, corn-fed, that commodity beef is, there's like it's traded every day. You can see the pricing. USDA sends stuff out. Grass-fed is completely, there's nothing out there. What a lot of retailers are doing is they're taking advantage of the customer. They know the customer wants this product, so they're jacking up the price. You can see prices of ground beef for a pound of ground beef for grass-fed being anywhere as high as $11 a pound. In terms of wholesale and what it actually is, it's probably a 50% premium, something like that. But again, it's not a liquid market. There's a information friction that currently exists, which hopefully over time we'll be able to help solve. Because in order for this market to be anything like the commodity market, it really needs to actually be a market, not just random purchases and no transparency.
So I've got you going pretty fast right now, but why don't you give people, as we'll kind of backfill in some more details and kind of the startup process here and fill in some more experiences. But where do you stand right now today with ButcherBox in terms of profitability, customers, all that kind of stuff?
I started the company with $10,000, and I wanted to do that because, as we talked about previously, I really wanted to prove to myself and to other aspiring entrepreneurs that it's possible to start a company with minimal resources. We did a Kickstarter campaign. So we went out to raise $25,000 and we ended up raising $215,000. That Kickstarter campaign ended in October of 2015. So it's essentially 2 years ago to the day. And we then were off and running. And there have been some moments where it was a little rough in terms of how are we going to pay for more inventory, or how are we going to pay. Really, that's been the big one because we have to keep our inventory levels pretty high. But we have not raised any money and have just done it all by the bootstraps, the old-fashioned way. We currently are north of 30,000 subscribers, spanning across the entire nation. 48 states, not Alaska and Hawaii yet. We have 3 distribution facilities, and we just deliver people beef, chicken, pork, or any variety of those 3. Our whole model is we want to replace the butcher. We typically talk to customers who either use us for access, like they can't find this product anywhere else, or convenience. Maybe they have a Whole Foods near them, or maybe they have a specialty butcher, but they just don't have the time to actually go there and pick the cuts they want and look up recipes and all the other stuff that we do. So we've carved out a pretty interesting business here, and we've done so without taking money. And I actually believe, and I'm happy to get into all the details, but I actually believe that the fact we didn't take money pulled us into this direction. We're using marketing channels that we never would have looked at.
I want to hear the details that you think I probably want to ask you about that. Go right into it. I want to hear.
So most of these box subscription companies, so obviously Blue Apron just went public, so people are really looking at the box subscription space and asking, is this a thing? Is it going to last? Is it not going to last? Most of them operate at massive losses. They continue to raise money at stupid valuations, in my opinion. The whole model is it's a lifetime value game. They say, hey, if we acquire a customer, we know based on cohorts from a year ago that customer is going to stay for 5 months, and we make a $40 profit off them, but we think we can increase that profit by doing X, Y, Z. So we'll say it's a $50 profit. There's $250 in profit. This is a winner-take-all game, so let's spend $250 to acquire that customer. And that works great if you can just churn with venture capital. But eventually someone's left holding the bag because you're building a non-profitable company. we have moved away from that. We've never played the long lifetime value game. And what we did is we used influencers, content, and a bunch of other marketing techniques that didn't cost us any money. We started with some of these paleo bloggers and recipe writers who wrote emails to their audience saying, hey, I've told you for years you should eat grass-fed beef. Here's a great resource to do that. And then we'd see a bunch of signups, and we'd pay those influencers ongoing commission. So we kind of stumbled into this because we couldn't pay them up front because we didn't have any money. We told these influencers, hey, we'll pay you a check every time that this subscriber resubscribes. And now we've built this really interesting business and kind of model for them where they're getting checks every month for their group of subscribers, and those checks can be very large. And as I've said, I believe it's the American dream to sit on your ass and collect checks. That's what we've built for these people, is these influencers who are very well known are able to write to their audience, introduce them to a product that fits a need, solves their issues, and also receive checks and royalties from those people.
Speak to me about subscription. I'm really curious here because when I first went to your site, I was expecting initially to just see, okay, I can buy whatever I want to buy right now, a la carte. I wasn't even thinking subscription model. And then I see subscription model, and I kind of do a little bit of a head scratch for a second, but then I think, okay, there's subscription models working all across the universe of different products, but how do I even know what meat I want to be that consistent?
We were the first subscription-based meat company out there. So Omaha Steaks is really the big player in the space, although they don't do grass-fed, they do conventional. But $700 million privately held company, and they're all gifting and one-time orders. So they do huge pushes in the holidays, but really the rest of the year is not much. That wasn't our model. Our model was, I'm too busy, I want to eat great food, but I don't really want to have to go to the store and pick it out, and I don't know what to look at. And what happens is people just eat ground beef because really, what else do you know how to cook or what to do? We wanted to throw that on its head. And the way that we started was we curate the box for you. So you, the customer, you just say the proteins you want, beef, chicken, let's say, and then you'll receive on a monthly basis 25-ish, sometimes more, meals or portions of beef and chicken. So that might be a tri-tip roast, that might be ribeyes, that might be ground beef, that might be chicken thighs. It could be a whole bunch of different stuff. And then we do a bunch of asking our customer, hey, was that good enough? Did you want more? Or did you want less? Do you still have some left over? We're really just dialing in our program to make sure that we're keeping the customer as happy as possible. Because again, what we want to do is we want to replace the butcher. So we want to have the customer feel like, oh, I don't even need to go to the store. I don't even need to walk to the back of the grocery store to pick up my meat anymore. I just get my meat from ButcherBox.
You're doing more than that, though, because there's not too many people in today's society that have a butcher that kind of curates for them. And so, I'm thinking to myself, one of the things I've been telling people for years, don't hand me, if I'm in a nice restaurant or just a good eating place, doesn't have to be low or high end, whatever. I don't want to see the massive menu. Tell me what's good. Give me the good. Surprise me. So to some degree, people are paying you to be surprised.
And we did launch a custom option recently because we had a lot of desire for it, for people who don't like the surprise, and that's okay. So then they just get to choose, hey, I want these 6 things. Send it to me every month. And, we put that on autopilot for them. One of the beautiful things of the model is that the customer gets to be surprised. One of the other beautiful things of the model is that we get to go out to the market and buy different products at different times and put together a really interesting box and solve a lot of the issues that these grass-fed beef providers have. Because in grass-fed beef, the only things that really sell in a grocery store are ribeyes, New York strips, and ground beef. That's it. So when we go to them and say, hey, we want brisket, they're like, great. Right now they're taking a brisket because the way beef works is you have to move it. It has to leave the facility. So either it has a buyer or they're going to grind it up and sell it as ground beef, which is the lowest price thing there is. So if we go to them and say, hey, we want some brisket, then we're able to get a good deal for our members, provide our members with a really interesting cut, and solve some of the issues at the packing house in terms of helping them utilize more of the animal, which is one of the big important gains of meat production.
Speak to me about the shipping part. I assume everything's coming frozen.
So it's packed in a eco cooler with dry ice. It works almost all the time. We're ironing out issues, which are mostly with our shippers, but we work with all the major shippers, but we run continuous improvement here and continue to improve our processes to get our failure rate down as low as humanly possible. Yeah, essentially it's, we pack it with about 6 pounds of dry ice per day in transit. You'll have your meat in a cooler, and then you'll have your dry ice on top, and that dry ice will keep it rock hard for as long as it takes to get to you. And then we pack it with extra so that people don't have to worry about, I'm not home right now. Is it going to last, etc.
One of the interesting things now with what you've built so far compared to your first experience, you have control. I mean, you never have complete control of anything, but you have control about the scaling and the timing of that scaling versus having other chefs in the kitchen and other money in the kitchen that want to get to some end goal on some time frame that's not even necessarily connected to whether or not the business is going to be long-term successful.
Correct. Yeah, I've been saying over the past few months, Blue Apron went public and has had a pretty bad debut. Amazon said they were going to get into meal kits. Plated just sold to Albertsons. So there's a ton of froth in the space. And if we had raised money, I would be spending 50% of my time talking to investors about, what's our plan for this? Or what do you think about this? Or what's going to happen with this? Rather than actually trying to build a business.
That's so much energy to give. It's like energy vampires, right? Like literally if you have to give 50% of your time to people that really have nothing to do with whether or not you're profitable or not, and then psychologically draining as hell.
Absolutely. And then you're wondering, am I doing the right thing? Oh, did we mess up here? You raise money on 8 times revenues, but Blue Apron's at 3 times revenues. We're concerned. Do we need to do a down round? What should we, there's just like all of that kind of froth. I mean, it's really it just gets in the entrepreneur's head. I spent years being like, oh, God.
Let me try and guess where you're going. So you're either going to keep going your steady pace as you are, stay profitable, right? Is the long-term thinking to keep it in-house and have this be something that grows with the family, et cetera? Or is there a thinking at some point in the future if somebody comes along and knocks on our door and says, excuse me, sir, we'd like to take this away from you and here's your check. How's your thought process here?
I think we're building something really cool and a brand that deserves its space in the world. But at the end of the day, I mean, I have our employees are shareholders. I have people who are expecting me to do what's best on behalf of the shareholders. If that's keep it, great, I'll do that. If that's sell, I'm happy to do that as well. I'm kind of agnostic in terms of, I love what I'm doing. I love this business, but at the same time, it's, if someone comes with a check and is able to see the vision we see and is able to pay for that, sure, we'll entertain selling. We are also going to be building ancillary businesses, now that we've figured out the platform and the technology and the shipping and the fulfillment, we're spinning up ancillary businesses that can also be assets. That's been pretty interesting and is able to quench my entrepreneurial fire to keep going. Right now, my dream is to scale this to a $100 million company over the next year or two, because I've never done that. Start from zero, scale to 100 million. I think that'd be pretty amazing. We'll see. I mean, my head's down, but somebody reaches out. We're happy to talk.
As I was preparing to talk to you, and I went to the website just briefly. I was on a thread with a sister and a family friend. I'm in Asia right now. They're in Virginia. I said to them, I just sent them the link, and because they're huge meat eaters. I said, hey, you might want to check this out. And it's like funny, I don't usually do that, but it's like your business model is such where it's an inviting idea because everyone knows the friction of first trying to deal with a grocery store. That's one issue. Then the second issue is if somebody presents to you a really healthy alternative the premium is no longer a premium in terms of just pure price, because it's not an A to A comparison. It's A to B. That's not the same thing. So if you, in your mind, if you say, hey, hold on, wow, this is delivered to the door, there is a huge amount of, consciousness behind this. There's a real ethos in the company that I can feel, and I'm getting something healthier. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's like I said, I sent out the link before I even knew anything about you guys, because the way it's presented, it's kind of like, well, gosh, why would I not try this? I'm not trying to be a sales pitch, but I'm guessing this is probably one of the reasons why you're having pretty quick growth, because it's one of those things that's like the light bulb moment. Boom, I see that. Oh, I want to try.
Yeah, I think people like to have a friend who's tried or hear from a reliable source, hey, you should try this. But yes, it turns out selling a box of meat is way easier than selling a piece of custom furniture. Learn that. It's a product that is needed. It fits a hole, and it solves a lot of issues, whether it's just time or it's not being able to figure out what to buy or how to buy it or where to buy it. There's a lot of issues that we're trying to solve. Our challenge is to nail our operations and our logistics and our fulfillment to the point where it's just brainless and is coming to you, and you don't have to think about it and worry about it. So I'm spending a great deal of my time on making sure the customer is having the most amazing experience possible. And that continues to be the big drive.
I remember a book years ago called The Experience Economy. If people have a good experience, they'll pay anything for it.
What we want is for you to send that to your sister, and then for her to be like, okay, cool, I'll get one box. And then she gets one box, and she's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then that leads to other boxes and other boxes and other boxes. And I think one of the things that really separates us from like a Blue Apron or, all the other meal kit companies is I see those as kind of luxury items. Like, you can decide to have these meals pre-portioned and sent to you, or ultimately you're going to say to yourself, I'll just go to the grocery store and cut the potatoes myself. I don't need them pre-sliced this week. Versus our product, where it's really it's meat, and it's not necessarily something you can find. And you can do whatever you want with the meat. So it comes pre-portioned, meaning each individual portion, like an 8-ounce filet or a 10-ounce ribeye or something like that. You can use as much of it as you want or as little of it as you want. You can decide to thaw one steak out or thaw out a bunch for a party. So flexibility is really key to what we're offering. And I think people really appreciate that. And then it becomes less of a luxury item and more of this is how I purchase my meat.
I wanted to have you on because I thought for fellow entrepreneurs, people interested in business, not that they're trying to compete, and not that they're trying to develop a competing meat company. That's not the point. But what can they learn through osmosis, through the experiences of a fellow entrepreneur, or if they're not even an entrepreneur yet, what can they pick up? One final question, and maybe we've already touched on the biggest issues from your perspective. These two great experiences that you have, one a little down, one a little up, but I'm sure in hindsight now, the down experience is probably an up experience in your mind because you learned so much from it. Is there anything I was not wise enough to ask you about today that is so near and dear to you as an entrepreneur that if you were like to advise a room full of MBA students or high school students, some of the first things that you would, or the first thing that you would address, or the one thing that I've not asked about yet today? Is there one thing I'm missing to ask you?
Yeah, so I think how we run the company or how we operate is really interesting for aspiring entrepreneurs to hear. I'm very much a believer in Rockefeller habits or traction, kind of KPIs, tracking what you're doing and how you're doing it. And what I find with venture-backed companies is a lot of times when you start creating new KPIs to like make sure that you hit the thing that you thought you didn't think you were going to do, but you did, that spells trouble. That to me smells bad. What we do on a weekly basis is we have probably 50 numbers that we're tracking, everything from number of people who left, number of people who signed up, profitability, cost of shipping, all sorts of stuff. And we track it every week, dogged focus on it. We started with 10 numbers and it's expanded over time. And what that does is it helps you to manage, the saying is manage what you measure. You can't really manage something unless you're actually measuring it. And I think to run a company where you're focused on profitability and you're focused on not having to raise money and being able to do it yourself, you have to have a extreme discipline around knowing whether you're actually doing well or not. And being able to say, you know what, we're not doing well. It requires humility. It requires a little less focus on, I'm going to change the world, and a little more focus on, here's how we're going to attack this quarter. And eventually we'll change the world, but it's here's how we're going to attack this quarter or this month or this week. I meet with a ton of entrepreneurs, and unfortunately, most of them want to meet me to ask me about fundraising. How do I raise money? It's like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I'm not the guy to talk to you about that, because I think that there's a way to do it without raising money.
Even after they know your story, they still want to go there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, well, why do you reach out to me? I don't understand. I try to, obviously there's some businesses, look, if you're going to start Tesla, you're going to need some capital. I get it. But for most of these people, most entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, or even older entrepreneurs who are just getting into starting a company, most people think they need to raise gobs and gobs of money. The reality is that's all you read about. The tech press, if you look at TechCrunch or any of the other tech-focused news sites, it's all about fundraising. Oh, they just raised $5 million. Oh, they did this, they did that. It's very transactional. It's not about building a business from the ground up without raising money. I think that focus needs its time in the sunlight. So I'm always happy to be the champion for not raising money and being able to build something big and cool without taking that step, because for a lot of businesses it's a distraction and it can cost you the company if you pick the wrong investors, or you raise money at the wrong time, or for a whole host of reasons it can sink the company.
Hey, and to add to your point about Tesla, if I'm not mistaken, Musk, having sold PayPal, had huge skin in the game on Tesla and all of his ventures. I mean, he was a guy that had massive skin in the game, maybe not all of it, but his skin was so massive to begin with. In many ways, he's of a similar headspace to you.
Yes. Yeah. I do some angel investing. I'm invested in one company where it was all about revenue, and now it's all about like users coming to the website. It's like, that doesn't actually drive anything. That's a vanity metric that you're now telling me is what I should be excited about, but I'm not excited about that. Unfortunately, what happens in the industry is people just get told that they need to focus on things that, quote unquote, pump up their valuation, when ultimately some companies should raise money, but I believe most companies can go at it without. And if you look at the truly successful people in this world, a lot of them did it without raising money, or raised very late in the process after they had proven a lot.
Yeah, you make a great point, because it's like, even if no one ever comes to your door and says, "Hey, Mike, we want to give you $100 million, whatever," even if they never come that way, you're going to make millions doing it your way already.
Yep.
And that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those young guys that are coming to you asking about, how do I get VC? They don't get that.
Well, that's right, because they haven't lived that. Yeah, no, the allure of getting written up in TechCrunch about how you raise money is big. I understand that. As somebody who has been featured in TechCrunch for my last company, it's not that great. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of questioning whether you're the right founder, the right person to take the team. It's a lot of people who spend microseconds looking at your business and then have a lot of opinions about what you should do or how you should change it. And it certainly takes away the creativity and the reins from the entrepreneur to build a company the way they want to build it.
I enjoy the hell out of your perspective. I appreciate you coming on. I really do. And I wish you the best of luck. I don't think you really need it right now. I think you've that luck part, you've already got past the luck part now. Now it's just hard work. Keep it going. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. A little luck wouldn't hurt.
Hey, so butcherbox.com, right?
That's right. And people can use coupon code Mike30, MIKE30. So we have employees, and we look at who's bringing in customers. So if they could help me out, they get $30 off their first box.
You're shipping where? U.S. only?
Yes, U.S. only. Unfortunately, not Alaska and Hawaii yet, but U.S. only right now.
So the next venture will be, can you take, as I told you, I'm in Asia right now. Can you take these ideas and can you port them to the rest of the world, even if you might have to have the whole operation inside each country? There's a lot of people eating a lot of meat around this world. Hey, Mike, listen, I appreciate you coming on. Great perspective. I wish you the best of luck. And again, butcherbox.com.
Thanks a lot.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.